Hello everyone, Jeff Murrin here. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to discuss two chapters from Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried, The Man I Killed, and Ambush. I think these are two companion chapters focusing on the same event from two different perspectives. Both of them are from the narrator's own perspective, but one is after and then other is before, or in the moment. And we get the reaction to the afterthought first, which I find is an interesting way to set this up. So the narrator focuses on the man he killed while in Vietnam. And the first one is The Man I Killed, and I don't have a lot to read from this particular chapter because this particular chapter really just details and kind of speaks for itself. However, the one thing I want to bring up about this that is, I think, the most significant is the repetition, the way in which the narrator observes the wounds on the dead man. The star hole through his eyes, the part of his neck that is torn, and it's like as they go on, he is staring at this, almost like memorizing every aspect of this dead man's face. And it's like he's drawn back to it. And Kiowa through the whole thing says, man, stop staring, stop staring, stop staring. But he can't seem to pull himself away. And it's like he just keeps going back to the details and keeps noticing the details, the physical details of the impact his actions had on this once living person. Kiowa tries to placate him, tries to get him to see that, hey man, you know, you did what you had to do. Would you rather that be you? Because he would have killed you. But it's the narrator cannot take his eyes off of the dead man. It is like memorizing every single part of it, which I think is interesting because we kind of get the idea often, or I do anyway, we civilians, we who have never been to war, that it's just, you know, soldiers can just kill and move on. And there are several kills that they may have, or, you know, and what we see here is that there is a lot more. And Tim O'Brien may be unique here, that, you know, there is a lot of emotional impact that goes through the soldier when the soldier performs this type of activity, I guess, for lack of better terms. And this did have a lot of, you know, impact on him psychologically, because what happened, if you'll notice, he starts to consider looking, you know, he looks at the person and he realizes he's not very muscular, he's very thin, kind of got some feminine features and things like that, and considers that this dead man was, at one point, probably an intellectual. Somebody who was into mathematics, somebody who liked to read, somebody who got picked on, got bullied by the bigger men, but because of the influence of the men in his life, the elder men in his life, he felt like he had to kind of carry the torch and become a soldier and be tough like them. But he prayed silently. He prayed to himself that the Americans would go away and he would never have to fight and he could go back to his intellectual pursuits. Now, that is also significant because it's almost as though the narrator here is projecting his own experience onto the dead man. Okay, he's saying, okay, because you know that it said earlier that he was, you know, scholarship to Harvard. He was, you know, a student who did well and was going to continue to do well, had his life kind of planned out, and then this draft came. And he didn't want anything to do with the draft. He wasn't a soldier. This is completely outside of what he wanted. He wanted to live a life in academia. He wanted to live a life of intellectualism. And so he's projecting that same type of thing onto this dead man. He's seeing himself. He's got this, something that we all need more of, I believe, but it's a view of empathy. He is empathizing with this dead man and all the ways that this death may impact other people, and how he just did not want to be a part of this at all. All right, and I find that to be very interesting. Now let's go into the ambush, the chapter of ambush. So ambush is like, okay, how did he come to kill this man? And you know, he begins with his daughter asking him, have you ever killed anybody? It seems as though, you know, says, I guess you must have killed somebody. You write all these war stories, I guess you must have. And he tells her, no, I never did. Because she's young and he doesn't want to in any way disturb her. But it is interesting, I believe, because he says, if she asks me again when she's older, I'll tell her the truth, when she's ready to hear it. But he goes into it. This is on page 126 in my version, which is this particular book. All right, it's towards the bottom of 126. He says, it was entirely automatic. I did not hate the young man. I did not see him as the enemy. I did not ponder issues of morality or politics or military duty. I crouched and kept my head low. I tried to swallow whatever was rising from my stomach, which tasted like lemonade, something fruity and sour. I was terrified. There were no thoughts about killing. The grenade was to make him go away, just evaporate. And I leaned back and felt my head go empty, and then felt it fill up again. It goes down, after he threw it, he says, I wanted to warn him. So we see how conflicted he is, but we also see how much his brain, his mind, emptied. And I think that's interesting because a lot of what we've been looking at so far is a reaction to something without the thought that goes into it. That was Henry Dobbins in the chapters prior to this. All sentimentality, all heart and no head. And here he's saying, my head emptied. There was no consideration of morality. There was no consideration of politics or any of this kind of stuff. Nothing. I just did what I did. Okay. And so I think all of this here in this section where we have, you know, stockings, church, the man I killed, ambush, and style. All of these are about reacting in a certain way that doesn't necessarily include critical thinking per se. However, it's interesting that after the fact, with this particular character, there is a lot of critical thinking in projecting himself onto the dead man. Okay, which brings a lot of it home what Tim O'Brien is doing. Okay, and that is what makes him wrestle with this. All right, so thank you all for listening. It's just more addition to this very complex but beautifully written and wonderfully structured book, The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. Happy reading, everyone.